People movers. What comes to your mind when you think of them? Either commercial use or family use. For instance, if you think of a Mercedes-Benz V-Class, the first thing that comes to your mind is family. But if you think of a Mercedes-Benz Vito, you're going to think commercial use. Same thing with the VW Caravelle. When you think Caravelle, you think family. But when you think of Combi, you think commercial use. Today, I have got the new Opel Zafira Life with me, and we want to find out where does it fit in, commercial or family. One of the major factors that will determine how consumers perceive your product is how your vehicle looks. And looking at the Zafira Life, I think it looks more family orientated. There's nice soft lines, we've got chrome embellishments, and overall, it's quite a pretty van. But it doesn't really stand out if you compare it with its rivals. If you want something that really stands out, we all know that the Hyundai Staria is the route that you should go. Overall, however, I do think the fact that it looks more family orientated is a good thing for this car. Now, before we talk about anything in the inside, we need to explain what happened to the Opel brand for those of you who don't know. So Opel was bought by Peugeot, which is owned by a bigger company called Stellantis. As a result of that, you have got a lot of part sharing between these brands. So getting inside here now, I did notice that this comes from Peugeot, this comes from Peugeot, this odometer is from Peugeot, these pedals are from Peugeot, and a few buttons here and there, you can see that we have seen them before in Peugeot models. Now, that's not a bad thing. Peugeot makes very nice cars, and we always go on about how nice Peugeots are on the inside. In this Opel, however, I think it does work. It's a much more simple configuration. It is a people mover after all, and I do think that this layout is good for a vehicle such as this. However, I do have some criticisms. For instance, it's such a harsh sound. We're not saying we want a full leather dashboard, but come on guys, this is a bit too harsh. That being said, we still have a touchscreen infotainment system that gives us Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. I've got USBs and a 12-volt socket, so from a tech and convenience perspective, you do have some creature comforts. Another thing I do like though is this gear lever. I've never seen something like that before. Okay, with that being said, let's hit the road. Ha! You thought I'd be sitting in the front, didn't you? But if you think about it, for a car like this is where all the action happens. When you're on a road trip, most of us are going to be sitting here and enjoying the luxuries that come with a car this big. And sitting here, I can tell you that this car does really say family more than business use, because I've got a tray for my food. But this tells me that I can happily eat my meal and enjoy a long drive, provided I don't get car sick. Another feature that I do like is these air con vents that allow me to enjoy the air conditioning on a hot day, on a cold day, but it's just more for convenience, and that tells me that Opel has really thought about the consumer from a road trip perspective. Space-wise, I'm happy. The seats are very comfortable. It's not the most luxurious, so at the same time, a case can be made for more luxury travel from a business perspective if you are going to use it for more of a commercial use, but I do think that a family would be happy in here. Now the good thing is that Opel has provided us with a 2-liter diesel engine that produces 110 kilowatts and 370 Newton meters of torque, which is plenty of power if you ask me. This car performs very nicely. There are moments where you do have turbo lag, but you can expect that from a vehicle of this size, especially when you've got a small engine that is turbocharged, that is diesel, it's just begging for lag. That being said, the lag isn't terrible, and once it gets going, you really do have a good amount of power. In terms of ride and handling, this Zafira Life is softly sprung. I do enjoy just how it soaks up most of the bumps on the road, but there are moments when you do hit something harsh and you do feel it throughout the chassis. It's not as comfortable as the likes of a Hyundai Staria, but it still does the job from a comfort perspective. And I do think that if you're using this car from a commercial perspective or from a family perspective, you're not going to complain too much about the ride quality. I would say the ride quality is decent. This Zafira comes in at 749,000 Rand starting off, and you can get a more fancier version that has got leather seats and captain chairs at the back, and that's going to cost you around about 850,000 Rand. Personally, I think the pricing is fair. In fact, this car comes in cheaper than the equivalent Mercedes-Benz or the equivalent VW or the equivalent Hyundai for that matter. The only thing I'm concerned about is that 750,000 Rand at the end of the day is not a small chunk of change. It still could be considered as quite expensive. And that is where brand power comes in quite handy for the likes of VW and Mercedes and even Hyundai in this situation. That being said though, there's definitely nothing wrong with the Zafira Life. Instead, there's a lot of good things about it. The Zafira name is one that South Africans have come to know over the years. If you cast your mind back to the days of the Zafira OPC, you'll remember that there was a crazy time where Opel offered a very fast version of the previous generation of this car. I don't think that Opel's going to bring a car like that back into our country, but I'm glad that the Zafira Life is back in this guise because I do think it has a lot to offer in our market.